All right, guys, Team Stamp West 2018 in the bag, and we are wrapping up with the high-speed stuff. This is really where the bulk of my bag uh, has sort of developed, or seems to be. My mids and my fairways I have a really good grasp on, but this seems to be a big need for getting off the tee box in a variety of fashions. So we're going to start out with the Punisher. First run Punisher, these were a nice stiff Z plastic to them. Max weight one, and I love throwing these for full power drives. Something that I really just need to go very straight with a little bit of fade. These have kind of a duller edge as far as high speed discs are concerned, but these just have a ton of glide. I can really throw these, I don't know, 360 to 390, somewhere in there. They tend to go an extra 20, 30 feet farther than I think they're going to. So a lot of times I will throw these in the open, not necessarily tight wooded shots, but really great disc. Next up, we are going to look at my cranks. I have 4 cranks. We have 2. Start with these 2. 2 kind of reddish ones, max weight. This one's been in my bag for a little bit. This one's a new addition to my bag. But both these are a little bit less stable than the other 2. These will have a little bit understable mid-flight, and this one actually has a little bit more straight or slight right finish than my other ones do. But love cranks, really my go-to off the tee. And these 2 cranks carry a first run ESP. And the first run ESP is really similar to my other 2 Z cranks, but I'd like to have an ESP plastic in there just in case it's wet or damp or just really humid on the course. The ESP has the little better grip to it, so I can really trust that. And then my last one is what I call my Crank OS. This is a really stiff, very pearly Z plastic crank, and this thing is really, really just a beefcake. This thing has never turned over on me. I can rip it full power flat, and it just stays flat, rides it, and has a little bit of fade. Also a really good forehand throwing disc. Kind of similar to my Forces, which I'll get into. Very straight forehand flight, maybe a little bit understable mid-flight. But this just sees a lot of work in my bag. Next, we'll get into my Forces. I carry 4 Forces. We'll start with the sort of least stable among them is my Crystal Flex. This one's been in the bag for a little while, is kind of pretty beaten up. As far as backhand throws go, I will throw this for something usually when there's a slight wind. This is very straight. The crystal plastic is a little slower. It doesn't quite fade as hard, probably because it's a little bit used as well. But if there's a little more wind, or I just really need to rip on something more than even my beefy crank, this is usually what I'll grab here. Next up, we have a ESP, and similar to the crank idea, this is just kind of a stable ESP force. If it's wet, damp, etc. Just like to have one in the ESP plastic that I can trust. And then this one is a little bit newer addition to my bag. I needed something that was a little more stable than my Forces, but not quite a machete. And so I grabbed a Z-Force, and this one has a little baby dome to it, and is actually a really nice stable thrower. I can really throw this thing flat or on a slight anhyzer for max distance throws. Or if there's a slight headwind, I can release this flat and trust it. But just a really nice stable force for when you really need to get on something, or if there's a slight headwind. And last up is one of my favorite discs in my bag, a big Z-Force. And this thing is just really a true workhorse in my bag. The first disc that I was able to get out to 400 feet with any sort of consistency. The Big Z plastic seems to have a little bit less stable mid-flight to it in general. And so for me, I can really put these flat. They have a little bit understable mid-flight, but they just have a ton of glide. Very similar to my cranks, but a little more stable than sort of my bomber cranks even, and a little more trusty. Where this thing has really seen a ton of work in my bag is on forehand throws off the tee. Again, still working on my forehand mechanics, but the force really seems to be very forgiving on those 300 to 360, 370 even forehand throws. I can really release this flat. It stays very flat the entire flight and will hyzer out a little bit at the end. I can put these on a hyzer. They'll flip up and finish with a hyzer. Just a really great utility forehand disc in my bag, and this is another real workhorse, both backhand and forehand. We'll finish up with my last 3 kind of sort of utility discs, I guess I'd call them. The first one is a machete. Everybody needs a hunk of beef in their bag, and that's the machete for me. Any sort of really strong headwinds, I can still throw this backhand. I can still throw this forehand. If I am really trying to throw a forehand with some fade, I'll throw the machete. Similar with the backhand. If I need something that's very straight with a lot of fade, I'll throw the machete. And I really like these in the test flight plastic. A little more flex to them and seems to be a little bit more forgiving and not quite as super beefy as maybe some of the Pearly Z ones were. And then we have the Plastic Axe Intervention. This one is a really cool disc that has added a new line or a new shot to my bag. These have a 4 fade on them, but it's really a very long, smooth fade. It's not a dump off immediately kind of fade. For me, I throw these full power flat on long, stretchy hyzers. Sometimes wooded shots, sometimes open shots if it calls for it. These are really stable, great into a headwind, or great if you need something that is going to be straight but with a long sort of turning hyzer to it. And then last up in my bag is actually a Crank SS, and this one is 169 grams. And this is in my bag for backhand rollers. I've been trying to work on the backhand roller a little bit over the last year. Something that I seem to actually be able to throw farther than my air shots. I think my longest backhand roller is about 50 feet further than my longest air shot even. And after testing out a lot of different molds, some different weights even in the Crank SS, this one was the one that just seemed to be very consistent and pretty consistently the furthest backhand roller disc that I was able to find. So if you're looking for something that is a great backhand roller disc, definitely check out the Crank SS. And so that is it. That kind of concludes my 2018 in the bag. Feel free to comment, ask questions, maybe even subscribe. I don't know. Again, special thanks to Plastic Addicts for sponsoring me this year. Really excited to be a part of their team and kind of keep building my game and keep doing a lot of stuff on the disc golf scene. So, thanks.